Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Join Terry with Tracer Rounds every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio. If you miss a show, you can listen again on Wreaths Across America Radio every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to see if you are on target. MBR, giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
And welcome back to the Tracer Rounds podcast. And I'm Terry, your host. And with me tonight is Alice Swan. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you, Terry, for this opportunity.
I'm so happy to have you on. We've been planning this for a while, and we finally made it happen. So Alice is a military spouse, a retired military spouse now. Her husband's retired, but you're also a staff writer for At Ease, or at least write articles for At Ease magazine.
Yes.
And you've done a whole bunch of stuff over your career. So I'd like for you, if you don't mind, just to kind of talk about where you come from, how you got your credentials to start writing, and then maybe some of the things that there's just so much to unpack here. So you could just start telling me a little bit about yourself, and we'll just go from there.
Okay. First, I guess I don't know where to look, whether I look in my own face or your face. I'm just going to look at your face, Terry. But
Yes,
I grew up in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and went to college at Indiana University of Pennsylvania in Indiana, PA, birthplace of Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, wow.
The actor. And also the Brigadier General Air Force Reserve officer. So my husband and I met in college, and we got married in 1982, as right before he was going to Germany.
Oh.
And that was going to be my introduction to the Army.
Oh, wow.
I knew nothing about Army life. My dad was a lieutenant in ordnance at Fort Meade, Maryland, as part of his ROTC post-ROTC assignment. Mm-hmm. And that was it. didn't know anything about the Army. So the idea that as a newlywed, I was going to be going to Germany was just thrilling to me. But we had to stay for a couple months in a small apartment in Alexandria, Virginia, outside Fort Belvoir, because my husband was finishing the engineer advanced course. As an infantry officer, he was surrounded by all these combat engineers in the captain's career course. And but it was a fun place to start our married life. And then back then in 1983, he went to Germany. I had to go back and stay with my folks for a couple of months because there was no concurrent travel. And finally, my husband found a house to rent, and I got to move to Germany and began our Army life journey. And I will say, from Germany to Fort Polk to Fort Hood, Fort Leavenworth. We were at Fort Monroe in Virginia, Fort Myer in Virginia when my husband finally retired. All of those locations, it was a wonderful experience. It had its challenges, just like every military family faces, not only with moving, but with deployments and being the mom of 3 children while my husband was doing all of his training exercises and trying to balance family life with that. But I was pardon me, I worked in marketing before we got married. That was my degree from Indiana University. And I was fortunate enough to be hired in Germany in Bremerhaven in the public affairs office, and worked for the Norddeutschland community newspaper. And it was really a form of marketing because we were telling the Army story in the newspaper and talking about the different programs. And I also was able to do that again when we were in Fort Polk. So, but for most of our married life, I was a stay-at-home mom, but a professional volunteer, like a lot of military spouses, and found a lot of joy in working for the Red Cross offices where we were stationed, was very involved in schools, family readiness groups, ACS programs, and always, found something to do outside of the normal family routine for myself that still kept me either writing or in communicating for different organizations. So, I may not have gotten a paycheck, but I was still, even through the 30 some years of our military journey, I was always doing some kind of writing.
Yeah.
And when our youngest child was getting ready to go to college herself in 2012, I happened to see an advertisement in the base newspaper at Fort Myer. And it was for the publisher of their base paper was starting a blog and was looking for people who could write weekly stories for the blog.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent my resume in and some samples of writing I had done, and they hired me. And since 2012 till to currently, I've been working in semi-iteration for this magazine. What started out as DC Military Family Life got bought out by another publisher, which now has become At Ease Magazine. And I've really enjoyed it. It's provided me an opportunity to meet wonderful people like yourself, who I recently interviewed for the magazine's series on Reads Across America podcasters. But I love focusing on veteran entrepreneurs, being able to share their stories and help publicize their businesses to our Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. readership. And also, highlighting veteran or military family nonprofits and support services. So it's been a very interesting, I guess, a second act for myself.
Right.
After being, a military spouse, a spouse leader, mom, to an empty nester, now feature writer.
Right.
For all these years. So it's been very interesting.
Sounds like it. So what was your biggest surprise about Army life? What was your biggest surprise? Because you said you were a new spouse and then new to the Army and all at the same time. So you're learning how to be a spouse. You're learning how to engage with the military community. So what was your biggest surprise in that, I guess, journey as a new bride and a newly, what's the word? I'm trying to think, indoctrinated Army spouse?
Well, I think what surprised me was all of a sudden having to be part of a group.
Right.
I wasn't in the popular crowd in high school or college. I, really kind of made my own way.
Yes, ma'am.
And was never felt comfortable meeting new people. Didn't have a lot of self-confidence, I guess. And I learned very quickly that if I wanted to have any kind of enjoyment in my life, I needed to open myself up to new experiences. So you're not only learning, like every newlywed, you're learning how to live with somebody that has to get up at 5:30 in the morning.
Right.
You have to have their uniform ready, and then figuring out what you're going to do all day, and not a week after I arrived in Germany, my husband looked at me and said, "Okay, I've got to go to the field tomorrow." I said, "Well, a cornfield, the cow field? What does that mean?" "No, we're doing training. I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks." Well, I just got there. I didn't have my driver's license yet. For anybody that's been to Germany, you have to study and take the test.
Yes.
We lived, thankfully, in a little community right next to the base, which was Garlstedt base for 2nd Armored Division Forward. In 1983, we were there from 1983 to 1986.
Oh, wow. So
there was, thankfully, I could walk to the base, but it had a Burger King and a shop at. That was it. I had to figure out how to, thankfully I got my ID card in Fort Belvoir. So I had my ID card, but I couldn't drive to the grocery store. We had a little German imbus just down the street, so I could go there. I learned quickly to point at lunch meats and breads and figure things out. But it's like, well, this is not what I expected, but There were 2 other military families on the street, and the wives were kind enough to kind of take me under their wing and help me along in those 3 weeks. But one of my one of the tasks my husband asked me to do was to find some outdoor furniture, because this rental house was so cute, but it had a patio that looked out over a farm field, and we wanted to sit out there with our German wine. So I had to find somebody to get me to a store, learn how to do the Mehrwertsteuer, the tax paperwork. And so it was, it was kind of good that it happened, because it was like learning on the job pretty quickly and learning that, okay, I'm up for this. I can do these things and not fall apart and figure things out. And that was a good experience. And then, but I want to say, we did have our romantic honeymoon kind of experience for those 3 years in Germany, taking lots of trips and taking advantage of the travel programs that were available to do tours, and made lots of good friends that we're still in contact with after all these years. It was kind of kickstarted my military life. Yeah. And it stayed the same way. I really credit the military experience for forcing me to open myself to face challenges, to not be afraid to meet people, introduce myself, open up. And then as our career progressed, my husband's career progressed, to not be afraid to take leadership roles and learn how to speak in public, which is terrifying for those who don't do it all the time.
Right.
I just really gained so many personal skills and sense of independence, but also a willingness to be a part of something that was bigger than me, which was wonderful.
Our experiences are a lot the same, because I was over in Germany, I think 85 to 86.
Oh, yeah.
Not long. Yeah. I was in Schweinfurt.
That was our second tour. We were in Schweinfurt. I loved Schweinfurt.
Yeah, I did too. I really enjoyed it. And I lived about 20K off the post, so I had to get my driver's license. So I know exactly what you're talking about. You had to wait until you got it in order to get around. And then we ended up moving in town to some apartments that were like within walking distance of the base. So it wasn't so bad, but I really enjoyed it too. I would have gone back in a heartbeat had I had the opportunity, because I felt like just seeing castles and seeing those things was something to see. Like, it was pretty amazing.
We had 2 tours. First as newlyweds, and then our second tour in Schweinfurt. And at that time, we had 3 children. My son was in 7, middle daughter was 3, and then we had our 1-year-old, and I took them everywhere. I just said, I can't stay home.
Yeah.
And I just took them. We went on train trips. We went down to Garmisch and did skiing, and we went to Neuschwanstein, and
it's beautiful.
Did trips with friends, because I was fortunate. We were in quarters. There were lots of other military spouses around me who had kids the same age, and it was really fun to be able to have travel buddies and do things. And the schools, the elementary school, the DOD school was so nice because they would let my son just take homework with us on the trips because they wanted the kids to experience. And it would have been so easy to sit at home while my husband was off in training, and he was also in Bosnia for almost a year. It would be so easy to just say, oh, I can't do it by myself, I'm too afraid. But all of my past experiences really built my inner strength to know I can't let this experience go to waste for my kids. And then my son, I have our son and my middle daughter, Mary, son Robin, are both in the Army. And my son's first assignment was in VLSEC.
Oh, okay.
So it was so neat. We all went over his first Christmas. My husband and I and our two daughters, who were at that time 20 and 18, went over to Germany for the Christmas. And to see even my son, you know, cool West Point grad, you know, his face at the Christmas markets and his joy in taking us around where he lived to see things, and my daughters getting to really experience Germany because they could see family photos but not remember those experiences. Right. That made me appreciate military life in a different way, because my son's service allowed us the opportunity to show my daughters, you know, this is what you saw, the Christmas markets and, you know, the castles and different things that, you know, they were experiencing it now firsthand and had memories to carry with them. That was so cool.
That is really cool. Or we're going to need to take our first break and then we'll come back. So we're going to play Cafe Anderson, You Can't Spell Hero Without Her, and we'll be right back.
Signed up to fight for freedom. What a price you had to pay. Picture in her helmet, missing family every day. Your Lady Liberty, dressed like G.I. Jane. Some scars we'll never see. She will never be the same. She's a mother, she's a daughter, she's a sister and a friend. Standing tall in that uniform until the very end. When Uncle Sam called, she signed that line to serve. 'Cause you can't spell hero without her. On that old dusty base with the meadows that shine, she's been to hell and back for the stars and the stripes. Your Lady Liberty, dressed like G.I. Jane, and some scars we'll never see, and she will never be the same. She's a mother, she's a daughter, she's a sister and a friend. Standing tall in that uniform until the very end. When Uncle Sam called, she signed that line to serve. 'Cause you can't spell hero without her. Yeah, yes. For the ones that didn't make it, we will pause and then we cry. We can still see their smile in every sunrise. She's a mother, she's a daughter, she's a sister and a friend. Standing tall in that uniform until the very end. When Uncle Sam called, she signed that line to serve. 'Cause you can't spell hero without her. 'Cause you can't spell hero without her.
The station where our veterans' voices are heard, MBR Talk.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
And welcome back to the Tracer Rounds podcast. And I am Terry, and we have with us tonight Alice Swan. And we've been talking about your time as a military spouse while your husband was deployed in different places, but you were in Germany and you had a bunch of other assignments. What would you say is your favorite place that you were assigned?
Well, Germany, of course.
Yeah.
I have two. Germany,
Okay.
and we were so fortunate to have assignments in northern Germany and then in the Schweinfurt, which was more central, and could do a lot of traveling in southern Germany. But our last assignment was, or second to the last, was Fort Monroe, Virginia, right on the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay and James River and the Atlantic Ocean, and right across from Norfolk Naval Base. So most of us in the Army, you're at Fort Leavenworth, you're at Fort Riley in the middle of the country, Fort Carson with the mountains, Fort Hood, Fort Bliss with the desert,
Yes.
And so to be stationed at Fort Monroe, first, it's one of the oldest at that time. It has since closed since we were there. It closed in 2011. We were there for 4 years, from 2005 to 2009. My husband had a 2-year deployment in Iraq, but we were at this beautiful place. The girls were, loved their schools. But to be on the ocean as in the Army was just an amazing, amazing thing.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I have a terrible story about myself. We had moved in the summer, got to live in one of the beautiful old homes on the base. And it was the day after the moving truck had come and dropped off the boxes, had unpacked things, still had boxes and paintings and stuff all around the house. And Fort Monroe is very small. My husband's office was just up the street from our house. And the kids, summer, teens, young teens, they're sleeping. So I said, oh, well, I'm going to put on my walking shoes and I'll walk to work with you, sweetie, and then walk, because was a seawall trail along the edge of the base. And as I'm walking along the seawall, in comes a Navy sub, one of the big boomers, nuclear submarines. And I just was like, oh, this is just going to be such an awesome experience. Look at this. I'm watching this sub, and I walked right into a light pole.
Oh no.
Thankfully, I didn't break my glasses.
Oh my goodness.
Even from that, I just had the biggest smile on my face, because it's like, okay, that's all right. You're experiencing. And to be able to, see the carriers and the destroyers and the battleships and the subs going in and out, the big container ships, it was awesome. And I just really loved that place. I liked Hampton, Virginia. Got very involved in the schools, middle school and the high school for my kids. Met some wonderful people who lived in the town, that because of sporting activities and things that they were doing. I was fortunate. My sister lived just up the road in
Oh, wow.
Yorktown. So especially while my husband was deployed with first for his assignments in Iraq, just to have her to be company during those 2 years was wonderful.
Yes, for sure.
It was really good. It was my shore duty as an my sea duty as an Army spouse. That's what I always called it. And everybody that was stationed there, we called it Resort Monroe, not Fort Monroe. But that was really one of my favorite places to be.
Yeah, I can only imagine. You're right. I mean, Army assignments differ greatly from Air Force assignments and Navy assignments, and it's seldom do you get on the water. Every now and then, like maybe if you're Hawaii or somewhere like that, you might find the ocean pretty darn close, or maybe somewhere in California. But typically speaking, you're right. We're inland.
Yeah.
A ways.
That was really an experience. And then just as a memorable experience, before my husband retired from the Army, we were living at Fort Myer, and that was in 2009. So it was still very much in the time of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and being so close to Arlington National Cemetery and seeing the caissons go down the street for this, and hearing the cannons rolling across the cemetery to Fort Myer was moving, and made you just aware of the sacrifices being made by so many people, that not only the service members, but the families that were across our nation experiencing loss, but also, supporting their loved one who was still serving. And that was a memorable time, an emotional time, but a memorable time.
Yeah, I can only imagine seeing a ceremony at Arlington National. I just, just hearing you talk about it gives me goosebumps, honestly.
Yeah, it was. And for audience members who have never seen the members of the old guard who serve as on the funeral details, and also the ceremonial details, the practice that, because you're living there, you're walking by the fields where they're practicing, and the seriousness that they display in this duty. They know it's a sacred mission that they are performing, and that they are representing all of their fellow soldiers in everything that they do. It was a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Every military funeral I've seen, everyone involved from the military side is very their movements are precise, like you say, and everything they do is so practiced and so smooth. And it's something to watch just from that perspective. I mean, the funeral is sad, and you don't want to be there for that reason, but those that perform those duties for us, I mean, you just have to give them all the credit for really
exactly
representing the military side of it.
Yeah. I mean, being able to see them at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, that they are really paying tribute to their fellow service members. So that was I guess the most memorable place that we were stationed. But every place we went, though, and I'm sure for most military spouses, they find the things that can bring you joy. There's the old adage among military wives, bloom where you're planted.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that. And now I have the chance to watch my son and his wife, my daughter-in-law, making their military journey.
Mm-hmm.
And they started out at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. They got to live here in Northern Virginia with us for 2 years while my son was going to graduate school. And then their next assignment was White Sands Missile Range. And I know my daughter-in-law, she was born and raised in the Atlanta area. So this was going to be such a different place for her. But again, I watched her grow in this role. And for my son, too, that they bloomed there. Mm-hmm. They had 2 children. They had bought a house that was great, that they loved. They took advantage of any activity, family activity, or just any type of thing that they thought they might enjoy that took them out into the local community. And I think that's true for every military family. You have to make it work, that it's there's so much more than sitting in your home or your quarters, whether it's a single soldier or, wherever you are. I think you have to find a way to bloom where the Army has put you. And you can find those opportunities. You just have to be open to them. And I'm really proud to watch my daughter-in-law blooming, and my son blooming too, that he got into it. He understood, okay, this is where we're going to be living for 3 years. We're going to make the most of it. I was really proud of him for that, both of them.
So what was your biggest challenge as a military spouse, would you say? You said kind of getting comfortable, taking leadership roles. Was it hard being away from family when you were overseas? From that perspective, what would you say was kind of difficult for you?
I was fortunate enough that my husband's parents and my parents were able to come and visit us while we were in Germany, and you could talk on the phone. But I knew that with my husband's position, and especially when the unit was deployed to Bosnia, mm-hmm. that I had a role to play on the base, mm-hmm. to help our families. And so that was challenging, because you think your husband leaves and, okay, I just got to take care of my family. But the Army expects, I didn't say that right. The Army hopes that its spouses will step up and help.
Yeah.
And I took that seriously. Probably too seriously, because when we were getting ready to leave and had a little farewell ceremony, my kids said, "No more FRG meetings." That taught me, but then immediately in September 11th, 2001, all our lives changed.
Yeah, for sure.
And that, my husband was in a school in Desert Storm, so he wasn't a part of that. I had met wives and husbands in our different assignments who were this, who were part of the families trying to, take care of people during Desert Storm.
Right.
But this September 11th, 2001, we were in Fort Polk and watching the attacks and then with my husband in that morning, and the phone rang and our lives changed forever, truthfully, until 2010 when he retired, because it was right after his 2-year time in Iraq. But he was busy, gone training and working. And that was a challenge.
Yeah. Trying
to learn to help take care of others while you're also shouldering your own fears for your spouse and the spouses of friends you've made. That I think was a challenging time, but we came through, and so many of my friends were with units who experienced loss, and they, it was that the work that our military spouses and extended families who might have been close to a base where, wanting to give support, that is kind of like an what would you call it? An unsung story, or a little told story that doesn't get the attention it deserves. I know that, they tried to help, but so many spouses stepped up to do really hard jobs, and that should never be forgotten.
Right. Well, we need to take a quick break, and then we'll be back. And then I want to hear about some of the people that you've written about and that you were surprised about. So we're going to play another Coffey Anderson song just because I enjoy his music, Mr. Red, White, and Blue. Here we go.
It's the guts and it's the glory, 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's a line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey. From the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana, to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop, and his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on the front line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, pay the ultimate price. Oh. March in line, march in line. Hey. Hey.
The station where our veterans' voices are heard, MBR Talk.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
And we're back on Tracer Rounds, and I am Terry, your host, and Alice Swan is with me, and we've been talking about your career. We've been talking about your military service as a military spouse, and now I'd like to talk about your writing and who you've written about, and maybe who you've interviewed, and maybe what's your favorite type of guest. I know you said you like to write about veteran-owned businesses and support what they're doing and kind of showcase their business from the perspective of starting from ground zero and building up to what they have today. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the people you've interviewed and what your favorite story was, maybe, or your favorite person to interview?
Well, I would love the opportunity to do that, and even pulled out some of the magazine issues so I can show people the covers. But if you don't mind, Terry, I'd like to say that again, the magazine I write for is At Ease, and the website is dcmilitary.com. And you can find all the back issues of the magazine. And there's really a lot of good stories in every issue. But I will say my favorite, and here I pulled out some covers.
Oh,
and
very nice.
This is May 2024. That's Colleen Shine. Her father was a MIA casualty of the Vietnam War. And I got to know her because I went to a ceremony at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., and it was honoring Vietnam veterans and the family members of POWs and MIAs. And it was an amazing experience. But to talk to Colleen about her own journey to find her father in Vietnam. And she was going into North Korea on her own.
Oh, wow.
Having to fly to France because the United States at the time wasn't doing visas to Vietnam. And she was part of the organization, and I've got to find the name of the organization. I apologize, but it's I have the magazine on my lap, so I'm flipping through, and it's the oh, I apologize. I should have had it with me. It's the National Military Families of POWs and MIAs, I believe. And so she was working the National League of POW MIA families. She was working for them because her mother had been a member of the organization. And after college, Colleen went to work for them. And she was working the phones one day on people calling in with tips, like if things had been found, dog tags or any type of artifact in Vietnam, people would call into the National League. And she was working the phones one day, and someone was calling in to say they found dog tags of her father.
Oh, my goodness.
And the Department of Defense at the time had really kind of was ready to close his file and, not do any more searches.
Mhm.
But she went on her own to North Korea, went to a village to meet with the man who had found the dog tags, and he took her up into a mountain, and she found the debris of her father's plane.
Oh,
And they did it. The defense POW MIA accounting agency sent a team in, and they did recover his remains, and he was able to be buried at Arlington Cemetery. It was an amazing story.
yeah.
And as part of that, I also we were just talking about the challenges of our more modern era military families and spouses as they were dealing with the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. But I also got to interview an author named Taylor Baldwin Calland, and she has a book that she wrote. I know it's not the best. It's called Unwavering, and it's the story of the Vietnam era military spouses whose husbands were missing in action and POWs, and how they fought for accountability from not only the Department of Defense, but the government, to make sure these service members were accounted for, were found. And just listening to her talk about the interviews she did with some of the family members of the spouses, and reviewing old newsreel footage and interviews of them, that they traveled on their own in 1969, I think, to go to France, or in the 70s to go to France to meet the North Korean delegation at the start of the peace talks. And, just talking about the difficulties, like back then, I mean, today's young women wouldn't understand, but I did, because I started working then. Even when I started working in 1980, I couldn't get a credit card. If you weren't, and even for some of these women, they couldn't get credit cards because their husband was missing.
Wow.
There wasn't anybody to sign for them.
Yeah.
It was crazy, but they, the bravery of these women and their resolve. And the book, and Taylor Calland told me she named the book Unwavering because it really was a story of unwavering love. So I highly recommend, if you have a chance, to find that book. It's on Amazon, Unwavering.
I will be putting that on my reading list for sure.
Okay. Now this is an amazing young woman, Melissa Paul, a young Marine, had to be medically retired, but she was born in Alaska, Native American heritage, and was leading a troubled life, and was able to find the Marine Corps to get on a right track. And she was an Olympic wrestler.
Oh, wow.
On the military Olympic team. And what she's done is now she started her own dog training program to not only train service dogs, but also drug sniffing dogs and things like that. So I met her down at Fort Monroe, I went down to Fort Monroe to get to talk to her, because she worked out of Norfolk, but she was really interesting.
Yeah.
Here's another great story I got to do.
Oh, nice.
This is Baldy. Oh, he's so cute. He's a service animal.
Oh.
But this is for Veterans Moving Forward, that provides Oh, I think I turned off my camera.
There
Sorry.
we go. We're good.
Trying to do two things at once. But Tim was a wounded warrior, and through Veterans Moving Forward was connected to Baldy. And he was gracious enough to talk to us so we could help promote Veterans Moving Forward in the magazine. But he's a teacher for Fairfax County Schools in Virginia, and he works in, you can see him, he's like in the woods. They have an outdoor science lab biology program.
Oh, wow.
So he takes Baldy with him and works with, takes the kids around in this nature preserve, and that was fun. Still on the Marines, I don't know, I'm an Army spouse. I end up writing about, okay, you see, this is
So
just
cute.
I got to do a story on the Marine Corps tattoo program. In anybody that's in DC will know this Marine Corps summer tattoos that they do at the Iwo Jima Memorial and at the Marine Corps Barracks downtown DC are tourist must-sees. And I was able to get kind of a behind-the-scenes look at how they train, all the preparations they have to do, and then I got to pet Chesty, so that was an awful lot of fun. And this is Don Francisco at the Slave Memorial at Mount Vernon. Don was a piper for the Old Guards Fife and Drum Corps.
Oh, wow.
For 30 years.
Oh, that's a long
And
time.
he retired and was looking for something to do, he told me. And this issue was February of 2025. It's a great story. He went to work after he retired, and he's been at Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, and the museum. And he goes around the grounds and meets visitors and will ask them, what state are you from? And he'll play on his pipe the state song or a college song. And he does outdoor music programs for the school groups that come in. But one of his duties at Mount Vernon is to run a daily memorial service at the tombs of the slaves and the slave memorial. And it was very moving to see him do that and the reactions of the audience members who were there. It's really wonderful. But he's pretty up. He's not young anymore, but trying to follow him all around Mount Vernon grounds was hard. He was quick stepping everywhere, and it was really a fun time to interview him, and just an amazing story of someone making a difference, putting their military music skills into a way to make a difference for people coming to Mount Vernon. And the last, because I have a daughter in the Army, I was able to do a story on the, you can't really see it, but this is the new director of the National Women in the Military Memorial, or Military Women's Memorial. And they had special, just to be able to talk about their programs, and for any women out there who have served, and please go to the Military Women's Memorial website and join their registry so that your story is recorded for posterity and for people to come and see what you did. So I highly encourage, if there are women who have served out there. I keep trying to get my daughter to do it.
Right.
But that's why when you played the previous song,
Can't spell hero without her.
that really touched me because of my daughter. But yeah, so I encourage that. I also got to work with the military history offices of the Coast Guard, the Navy, and the Army to do stories on the 80th
wow.
on D-Day and that's from May 2024. So it's on our website. If you want to read some neat stories, got to talk to historians down at Fort Bragg.
Yeah, it's Fort Bragg again.
Formerly Fort Liberty, formerly
Right.
Fort Bragg, to talk about the airborne mission on D-Day, and that was really, really a great experience to get to talk to those military historians and be able to share some, side, little known tidbits
Right.
about that historic event. So, yeah. So there's so many more. I will. My first article for what is now At Ease was in the fall of 2018, and my parents at that time had moved into a independent living residence on Old Fort Monroe. It was the Chamberlain Hotel, a historic landmark right on the mouth of the James River in Chesapeake Bay. And they turned the hotel into independent living. And my parents had seen it being worked on when they'd come to visit me at Fort Monroe. And when they made the decision to leave Pittsburgh and have an easier life, that was the first place they thought of. And they loved it there. And I got to meet so many residents who had military experience and I did a feature of short interviews with some of those retirees or prior service people, and it was just amazing. There was a guy named Bill Lee who played pool with Elvis in Germany.
Oh, wow.
Another man also, it's confusing, Bill Lee, not Harry Lee. He was a bomber pilot in the Vietnam, and he got to meet Bob Hope because they were having a mission brief, and Bob Hope was there on one of his tours, and he went in to talk to them, and it was right at the start of the Hanoi bombing of Hanoi, and they, he knew how dangerous it was for those pilots. And Harry told me, when we started the briefing, everybody was really quiet, but then in walks Bob Hope, and he's telling jokes, telling them, how proud he was of them, and he knows they're going to do, they're just going to really do well and succeed. He said when he left the room, those pilots, they were ready to jump in their planes and just take off. And I mean, that was a really neat experience. So Definitely. It has been, it's been great. So I have talked to prior military who have started breweries, who have started a donut shop right in my neighborhood. I have one. It's called Good Company Donuts. It's a really great donut shop started by a Navy veteran and a Special Forces veteran who happened to be working as office mates at the Pentagon. And they both said, we'd like to do something different. And they started a donut shop, and it has really taken off. It's done really well, survived COVID. And, it's just, I kind of find them on my own, but also I work with a great photographer named Jeff Heaney, and you'll see his work in the stories if you go to our website.
Yeah.
Jeff is a retired Air Force colonel, and he, living in Northern Virginia, a lot of people retire from the military and go to work for those Beltway bandits, they call them. But he didn't want to do anything like that. He didn't want to sit in an office, didn't want to travel. He wanted to do something closer to home. Mm-hmm. He had always loved photography. He was taught by his grandfather at a young age. And his grandfather took portraits outside of Fort Sill, Oklahoma during World War I. The postcard portraits that the guys would have taken to send home, his grandfather would take those. So, it was in his blood, and he went to a local community college to take some photography courses, and now he's a great freelance photographer here in the area, and I really enjoy working with him because he makes the story come alive through his photos. So.
Very cool. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up because we are at time, but I wanted to thank you for coming on.
I talked for an hour.
I enjoyed talking with you so much, and I enjoyed hearing about your service, and I enjoyed hearing about your writing and about the people that you've interviewed, because I find the same thing. There's so many interesting people, and you're one of them. So I appreciate you coming on and allowing me to chat with you tonight.
Thank you, Terry, for giving me this opportunity, and I really enjoyed it, and hope people out there will visit the dcmilitary.com website to read more about At Ease. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you so much. This is Trace Around signing off.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us, giving our veterans a voice.